when I was going through acupuncture school, I, you know, doing all the studying and all of that, and I came across a little shop in Old Town that had some rocks with Chinese characters on them, right? And so I kind of picked the one for happiness. Okay. And so I thought, oh, I'll always carry that rock with me because that'll remind me of everything that I went through acupuncture school and, you know, my pursuit of happiness, you know, from here on out. Well, I never really carried the rock with me every time because then I had pants that didn't have pockets. And I go, where am I going to put it? And anyway, and so there was a little card that came with it, talking about having a kind of spiritual balance and inner balance. But it also, the one kind of tagline that stuck with me is happiness comes when the words you say and the work you do are of benefit to yourself and others, then you will find happiness. So what I try to do with my clients is I try to make them feel good. And with the acupuncture, I tell them it's just a tool. It's just a skill that I've learned. And so if they can feel different from when they come in to when they leave, something happened in the body. And they'll say, and I'll tell them, they'll say, I can't go home and just take a nap and then wake up and feel the way I feel right now. I usually tell them, a new patient, that you're gonna feel like you had a couple margaritas. You're gonna feel like you had a couple glasses of wine, right? And I don't really tell them what to expect because it's different for each person, right? But if I tell them, oh, you're gonna feel this, and then they don't, they're like, well, did it work or did it not work? I'm like, well, so I don't really give them too much of an expectation because some people, you know, they're kind of blocked and they're gonna kind of fight it a little bit. So it might take 1 or 2 or 3 sessions for them. I had a client one time who, after 5 minutes, she was like done. She's like, I can't do this. But, you know, after talking to her and having her come in and trying to instill a memory in her body of this nice deep state of relaxation, by the time, you know, 3 or 4 sessions, I could leave her for 2 hours. And she was like, oh, we're done already? And so everybody kind of responds and reacts different. So I don't give them, I don't say, I kind of give them a hint, but I let them be an experience for themselves. And then I also think of all my clients, Jackie, you know, they're my gifts. And I'm there to receive them. I don't look at them as patient numbers. I don't look at them as, you know, money. I don't look at them. I'm like, okay, they come in, they present themselves, and I think, okay, what are all my tools? What can I do? And I just have to trust that my, you know, point prescription, my needle technique, my whole session is going to be enough to start eliciting a change. So how I got started, I actually blew my knee out skiing. And I had a nice toboggan ride down off the mountain. And after talking to 3 different orthopedics, I decided to not have surgery. So I ended up doing lots of physical therapy. After about 4 to 6 months, somewhere in there, I still couldn't get quite full extension and flexion of my leg. And so they actually sent me to acupuncture. And I was actually on that experience on the acupuncture table that, you know, it's kind of forced relaxation. You're basically left with your thoughts. And it was, you know, at that time, you know, I was kind of going through some stuff myself. And I realized, what am I doing with my life? What, you know, the way I feel now is how I want to feel. I don't want to feel stuck, right? And so at the time I had a small distributing company with some other people, and I sold my portion of it and went to acupuncture school. And it was more kind of being on that table that I realized that, you know, all the stuff we have, we can't take with us. And it's more about the impact and the impression that you leave on people. Like with Jackie, you know, that was 16 years ago, and she still remembers how it felt on the table for
Sure.
her.
I remember the music. It's
Yeah.
like Tibetan gong
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
I remember that. I loved it.
Echo. Oh, I don't think I have service. Okay. So, okay, well, that's not gonna work. So, I do a lot of, I really don't do a lot of work. I let my treatment rooms, I let everything else do the work. So when I have all in the rooms, treatment rooms, I have the Alexas. And so, and I have programmed guided imageries, certain music that I want them to hear. And so all I have to do is I get the needles in, do some moxa, put on a guided imagery for 20, 30 minutes, and then some music afterwards, and I come back in and they're like, they're just, you know, they're just out, they're drooling. But I really didn't do any work other than, you know, kind of setting the stage, and then that way I can, you know, do my, you know, my needling, and then, you know, then just let their bodies do the work. So, so that's kind of one thing that I'll do in my office. I still have CD players in there because sometimes the Wi-Fi does go out, and then I'm like screwed because then I gotta talk to them, you know, for at least 15, 20 minutes. But for the most part, I let the Alexas kind of do all the work. So, and then they also have verbal command with my teenagers coming in. One of them likes to listen to 80s rock. You know, so he'll put on 80s rock music. I go, I don't care, you know, and then they usually fall asleep, but, you know, instead of hearing like nice, relaxing small music, they like whatever they want to listen to. So it gives them kind of access to the volume control. It gives them access to, if they don't like a guided imagery, they can just change it to small music. Before the Alexas, they were ringing the bells, you know, and I'd have to, and I'll kind of show you what I do now. They would, you know, I had all these bells in the room, right? And every time I'd hear a bell, I'd have to go into a room. Well, when I had the spa, I had 5 or 6 treatment rooms, and I'm like, oh crap, what room rang the bell? You know, so I have to go to each door and have to wait for them to ring again, and I'm like, okay. So now I actually have like a buzzer system. I was actually at having sushi one night, and the sushi, they have these little buzzers, right, when you're ready to order. I'm like, I need that for my treatment rooms. So I have it's a little console that has up to, you know, 5 different buzzers. And so it sits on my front desk, and if someone hits the buzzer, it says room 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, front desk, whatever. And so that's how I know if someone needs me, and that gives them reassurance too, because I've had clients come in who have had acupuncture before, and they're like, oh my God, they left me in there for so long, and there was no way for me to contact them, and I was yelling, and no one was coming in. See, here's the buzzer. You need me for anything, hit the buzzer. Don't be afraid to hit the buzzer. Some people are afraid to hit the buzzer. Do not be afraid to hit the buzzer. And that actually, you know, makes it, they feel comfortable because they're not going to, you know, have to, you know, if the needle's hurting or, you know, you have to pee or you're just done, I go hit the buzzer. It doesn't matter. And so I don't use the bells anymore. So I brought a couple if you guys want them. If you're only in 1 room, you're fine. 2 rooms, you're kind of screwed. Because then you got to figure out where it's coming from. And any of this information I can kind of write down for you guys too, you know, but the buzzer system's really easy. And it tells you exactly what room, you know, that the person needs you in. Basically in my practice, as I said, I use a combination of Eastern and Chinese and Japanese kind of techniques. But because I do mostly fertility, I'm actually trying to take them out of their flight and fight nervous system, right? I'm trying to put them into a nice deep state of relaxation. And so the way that I do that is, again, the acupuncture is just one of the tools. So I actually, and I've really never told anybody this. People ask me all the time, what do you do in your practice? What do you do different? And I don't tell them, because unless they're willing to do what I do, it's just kind of a waste of time, you know. So I try to tap into all 5 senses. So I attach into the sense of touch with the needles. I do a little massage afterwards. It's their reward for being poked with needles. And what I found is people want to be touched. And so, so I do the sense of touch. I do the sense of hearing with the guided imageries and the music. And I do the sense of smell with the moxa, the massage oil, the liniments. I do what else is there? Nose, this sight I do with the guided imageries. And then I have Dove chocolates that I've had for 20 years. And I've tried to switch out the Dove chocolates to Belgian chocolates or something else. And they're like, no, where's the Dove? So the sense of the chocolate, everybody loves that little reward of having a little piece of chocolate afterwards. And even my fertility clients are not supposed to have chocolate, but I haven't had anybody not fall pregnant because they had a piece of chocolate. So,
Why are they not supposed to have chocolate?
because it's got caffeine in it.
Oh.
But then they know that, you know, when they're coming out of the room, they then get rewarded with a little piece of chocolate. And you can have really any candy, whatever, but they love the Dove chocolates, I'm just saying. And they really only take one. I've only had one time where someone come in and dump the whole tray in their bag. One time. I'm like, really? Usually they take one. I'm like, great. Yeah, they did the whole thing.
He wanted that reward.
No, really wanted that reward. No, they were just, I think, really cheap. And so that's, you know, I try to tap into all 5 senses. And so on that note, let me, I brought some different like Postamons, because one's a true Postamon and one is a fake Postamon, and you can tell the difference.
Wow.
I mistakenly ordered the fake one. I'll still use it, but I'm like, oh man. So I'll pass these around. So with the Postamons, they look identical, right? I'll pass these around. One comes in the container with this kind of white, you know, insert, right? That's the fake one. The real one comes with this more dark brown.
Wow.
And you can smell them, you can smell the difference. But they'll say they're made by the same company, the same, don't mix these up or I'll never get them back. Let me see. Yeah. I don't even know if the bottles are different. But yeah, maybe a little different. I can't mix them up. Oh yeah. So this one actually says Postamon medicated. This one is more the Chinese version, which I like. Okay, don't forget. Let me pass these around. Just open up and you can smell them. You can smell the difference. I had one time where I ordered from my distributor, and you'll just see if you can smell a difference. One's a little bit more mentally, and the other one's a little bit different. It's just off. I ordered some Wang Tu Yik, right? I'm like, no, it wasn't Wang Tu Yik. It was a different. They didn't have any Wang Tu Yik, so I ordered. They said, "Oh, we have something that's just the same." I'm like, okay. So I get the product and I'm using it, and I'm using it on people. I'm like, what is that smell? What? It's like, it reminds me of something. And I keep using it on people, using it on people, using it on people. I finally, you can tell the difference?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
There's one more herbal and the other one's sweeter.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it'll say they'll have the same ingredients, but there's something different in them.
I use something different in Singapore. It's called Jixiang Ryu. It's similar, but I find that it's more herby, and I prefer that.
Yeah. So I use it because my clients, for some reason, they love the Chinese one. They love the smell of that one.
The herbs and.
Yeah, it's a little bit more aromatic. It's a little bit more I guess.
There's more complexity to it.
Yeah, and they like it. They don't, and they say, oh, I love that stuff. It smells so good. But when I use the other one, they never say anything. Now, I mean, as far as getting the coolness and the tingling and the sensation, probably the same. But so anyway, I had this other product that I was using on people, and I finally look at the ingredients. The first ingredient is turpentine.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, oh my God, I've been using this on people. I couldn't figure out where the smell was. I'm like, it smells like paint thinner. Yeah, so make sure, that you're kind of.
It's more subtle. The fake
Yeah.
one has more menthol in it, probably.
Yeah.
More mint in it.
Yeah, so anyway, there are differences, in that. And it's kind of the same with the moxa. And what happens is companies get sold and then they, they start, then they change it. And I finally found one, so we can probably light these so you can kind of smell them too. So I only use smokeless moxa. And people, this box here, people love the smell because it's very earthy. The problem with the moxa, the smokeless moxa, is some of them are very poorly compacted, and as soon as you shake the ash off, it all falls apart. I've never dropped maybe some ash on some people, but I've never broken off. I'm very, very careful when it comes to the moxa. So I only use smokeless moxa because I don't know if Dr. Wong is still around anymore.
Yuan?
Older gal, no,
Yuan?
maybe.
Yeah, she's still here.
Can you do moxa around her? Does she have her spit cup? Okay, different long. So when I was in school, yeah, she was around, just the regular moxa. And when I was an intern, we couldn't do any, when she was on a shift, we couldn't do any moxa because it would irritate her so much. She actually carried around like a spit rag and a can because it was just phlegm, from all that moxa. So I realized, I don't want to be around that smoky moxa for 30 years, right? So I only do the smokeless, even though it does still put off probably something. I would be not surprised if, we ended up with lung cancer because of all the moxa that we do. But as I said earlier, I do some things according to Chinese medicine and some things not. So to really use moxa appropriately, like on stomach 36, you really gotta stay on that point for like 20 minutes. Anytime you do moxa, you gotta needle that point, individual points for like 20 minutes. Well, I don't have a practice that I can stay in the room for 20 minutes, with every patient. And so what I use the moxa for is, one, tapping into those 5 senses, right? The sense of smell, the sense of touch too, because it's very warming, it's very soothing. I will use it more when we needle a point, where I'm affecting the function of that point, right? So, but for me to further enhance that function of the point, I will add just a little bit of moxa. And the people can feel the energy move around as I go from point to point. So I usually will start, from the lower abdomen. I'll just as we needle, abdomen, upper to lower. And, I try to not confuse the body, but we try to get that, flow of energy kind of moving around. So I use the moxa not as a medicinal purpose, but more as, again, instilling that memory in their body and trying to just a little bit further enhance the function of that point. So
while you were needling it.
Yeah, once the needles are in, then I'll go ahead and just moxa around them. But again, it's the sense of smell. People will say, oh, that reminds me of my childhood, my grandfather, or smoking cigars or whatever. But it always brings up, and every time if Jackie came back in, she'd be like, oh my God, I remember this. So yeah, so I am just instilling, memories in people, that will last, their life, lifetime. So that's kind of the moxa, and we might be able to light some. I had some that I bought that smelled like the rubber tires burning down in TJ. I'm like, what did they put in this? I can't. That's not gonna go well with my practice. So it took me a long time to kind of find the moxa to use, the liniments to use, kind of with the liniments too. And I'm gonna go all over, so I think I lose you guys. Just bear with me. But even with the liniments, I don't use Zhengu Shui, because even though I love it, but it's an alcohol base. And if you needle and you pull your needles out and you put Zhengu Shui on, it's gonna sting. So they're gonna be like, oh, what's that? This is an oil based, so it's not gonna sting once you put it on. So if you're putting Zhengu Shui on something that you just didn't needle and there's kind of an open point, then for me it's fine. But I'd rather not use Zhengu Shui, that's all. Just because it's alcohol based. So I use Postmon, I'll use Wang Tu Yik. This first year over here has, his own from Taiwan, so yeah. What I'll kind of do is just kind of, if you guys were a new patient coming in, just what I would do with a new patient. Now, when it comes to the fertility stuff, once they sit down and they've, filled out paperwork, and I've kind of glanced over it, but I will, if they've never had acupuncture before, I'll explain it just in a nutshell so that they can have a little bit of understanding. Again, if you can't understand something, you're not going to accept it. So I give it to where they can kind of understand it. And then I explain how the reproductive system works. And then I go and explain kind of my thoughts on the fertility. And again, more trying to allow it to happen than to force it to happen. So if you want me to do my spiel with you, I can. Otherwise, with the acupuncture, I will. With the acupuncture, I will tell them that we work with these channels, pathways, highways, meridians, however you want to think of it. It's as if you had a garden hose, right? And you have the water turned on and there's a kink in the hose. We're looking for a kink in the hose. So we work with a couple substances. One is blood. Blood is what nourishes our bodies. The Eastern thought is in order for the blood to move and circulate, it needs an energy source, and that's what we call chi. Chi gives movement to that blood. So when I'm looking for a kink in the hose, I'm looking for an imbalance of state of chi and or blood. And they've already kind of filled out a little bit of a questionnaire that does the different elements. So I can kind of gauge kind of where the issue will be. But I tell them we work with these channels. They run down the front of the body, the side of the body, the back of the body. There's over 400 points on the body. I'm not going to needle all 400 of them. Of those, as acupuncturists, there's maybe 50 that we choose from, right? Of those 50, there's maybe 10 or 12 or 15 that we'll do in a session. When we're doing fertility, I tell them we're going to do some local abdominal points, and then we'll do some distal points, usually from the elbow down and the knees down. This chi is something that we can't see, you can't touch, you can't grab. You may feel it when it runs through your body. I will often say it's like the wind. Can't see it, can't touch it, you can feel it, right? They are kind of getting closer, and you guys might know me more up on all the data and studies than I am. But as far as I know, they don't know the exact mechanism that acupuncture plays in the body. They're coming up with more, they're getting closer. The last research I read is that it initiates an inflammatory kind of reaction near the nerve. Okay, great. But I don't know if you guys know this or not, but in Chinese medicine, there's no nervous system, right? So were they just, needling around the nerves and initiating that response, not knowing and calling it, channels, meridians? But now we know that most of the channels do follow the nervous system. So, okay, well, great. So I know, so then I'll explain to them what I do know. I know that we can release endorphins, the body's natural painkiller. I know that we can affect the autonomic nervous system, and that's everything done in your body automatically. So when you eat, you don't tell your stomach to produce hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes, it just does it automatically. So there's two parts to the autonomic nervous system. There's the sympathetic, that's your flight and fight, right? And then there's your parasympathetic. The parasympathetic is more when, you're sleeping. Your heart's still beating, you're still breathing, but, you're not conscious, right? And so what we want to do is try to put them into that parasympathetic state, of that deep state of relaxation. So the third thing that I usually tell people is that the body will look at the needle as a foreign object. So you're going to have an immune response take place, just as if you had a splinter, a piece of glass, something sterile, it's penetrated through the skin, entered the body. The brain's going to say, hey, something entered, foreign object, it's going to have white blood cells, phagocytes are going to go there, an immune response to go gobble up any bacteria. Well, it's just, I swab the point, my clean needle technique, right? And it's a sterile needle. So messenger cells will send a message back to the brain saying, hey, there's something here, but we can handle it. Great. Then I put another needle in. Guess what? Same chemical reaction happens. Put another needle in. Same chemical reaction happens. So we know there's a chemical reaction happening in the body. Now, whether it's the endorphin release, whether it's them coming out of their flight and fight and allowing their body to kind of correct and heal itself, or if it's the immune response, or if it's that inflammatory response near the nervous system. But, all I know is that, again, if you can feel different from when you came in to when you left, something happened in the body. Now, there might be, some other supervisors who can put more clarity on that, but that's my spiel, and it works. And then I tell them that the chi, and everything, that I say, I just didn't make up, it's documented somewhere. If I had to find it, I could, I just don't have it. But then they thought that at some point that the chi was the electromagnetic energy that's not only contained within our bodies, but it's about 2 to 3 inches off the surface of our skin, another 6 to 8 inches out, another 8 inches to 3 feet out. We're in each other's electromagnetic field, right? And you could really kind of tell this when we had to socially distance for 6 feet, and you knew when someone was 4 feet. You could feel it. Like, they are in my space, they need to back off. Well, the Chinese would say that they have just scattered your chi, right? And so what we want to do is, it's kind of like when you took a balloon and rubbed it on your hair as a kid and your hair stood out. That's the electromagnetic energy. So is that what we're tapping into? I don't know. Someone else will have to answer that question. And so I try to explain it to them to where they can understand, right? What else will I tell them? I'll explain the needles, I'll hold up a needle. I'll say the needles are all sterilely packaged. These are sterile until I open them. Once I open them, they're considered clean. I will use clean needle technique where I'll swab the points on you with alcohol. I'll swab my hands with alcohol. And then I'll show them the needle and I'll say, it's not a hypodermic needle. There's no hole in the tip of this. I'm not injecting anything. I'm not taking a chunk of skin, or debris into the body. It's just a quick, clean insertion. And then I'll show them that the needle will be inside the little guide tube. I'll just tap the needle in. And then I'll have them give me their hand. I'll say, it's just the guide tube, and that's what you may feel. Now, there are a couple sensations you could feel. If I get into a hair follicle, it's going to be like a piece of hair getting pulled out of your scalp. No big deal, it'll subside. Sometimes I can get into interwoven blood vessels, capillary beds that feed the skin. I can't see those. Sometimes I can get into a nerve bed. I can't see those. If there's a needle that's uncomfortable or bothering you, let me know. Sometimes, I'll put in, and I tell them the channel is run bilaterally. So if I hit something on Li4 and it's like making your hand go numb, guess what? They're not gonna relax on the table. When I do the fertility, I have to take them out of their flight and fight and put them into that parasympathetic. And if they're the whole for 30 minutes focused on, oh my gosh, that one on my hand, I guess I should have told her about it. Should I ring the buzzer? No, I'm not gonna be the one that rings the buzzer. Hey, just let me know. Because then when I come pull it out, they're like, oh, that one hurt me the whole time. I'm like, well, why didn't you ring the buzzer? Why didn't you tell me? So you just have to kind of tell them, just communicate with me, just let me know. And so then I'll place the guide tube and I'll say, that's about what you feel. Again, if there's any that are uncomfortable, let me know. I'll tell them I need to leave them in for at least 30 minutes. At the end of that 30 minutes, I'll come pull the needles. Now this is where, I don't do true Chinese acupuncture because once you've done your acupuncture session, then you've balanced out the qi, right? A true Chinese practitioner would say, if you do any massage, then you just disrupted what you just balanced out. Well, my clients don't know that, right? They love the little massage. They love it's 5 minutes, if that. And again, it's their little reward for being poked with needles, and they like that too. And so I will, I kind of tell them exactly how the treatment's going to go, exactly kind of what to expect, and they're all fine with that. So if you don't kind of let them know, then they're not going to kind of truly come out of their flight and fight mode. They're going to kind of stay in that. And when I do the fertility, I'm trying to increase blood flow into the reproductive system. And if they're still engaged in their flight and fight, I'm not doing anything. So it's not working. What else here? So I'll go through how I explain the reproductive system and all that, maybe towards the end. But as far as the business side of this, get a bookkeeper. You're going to need a bookkeeper. I have everything on QuickBooks. My bookkeeper has access to QuickBooks and to my computer through Log Me In. So once a month he logs in, sees all my purchases, all my receipts for the businesses, and then he does all my sales tax. He does everything. I don't even have to think about it. I don't have time to do all of that. And I don't want to do it. So it's $125 a month. He does it all. So he'll get all my taxes ready, all of that. So find a bookkeeper. You'll also need kind of a referrals for a chiropractor, massage therapist. Melanie is my massage gal. My massage gal before Melanie actually married one of the brothers who they own the Colorado Rockies. So she's not doing massage anymore. She's flying first class everywhere. And then because I don't make any money on the massages. It's more of a customer service. I'll usually, is it okay if I, okay. And actually they take up space in my office. So I'll usually refer out. Melanie's really good about going to everyone's houses and doing the massage. And then they come back, oh, Melanie's wonderful. I'm like, great. Melanie is actually more of a kind of representation of my practice. So you have to find people who think like you do. You don't want to start contradicting each other. So if you find a like-minded person, snatch onto them. I have a chiropractor, a couple of them that I refer to, the massage, a naturopath. My problem is that I've been doing this so long that everybody who I would refer to is retired or moved away. So it's like, oh, crud. So find a good naturopath. Naturopaths are kind of on the pricey side. So I think sometimes more recent ones, just an initial consult with them is $500. It's like people are like, well, do I really need it? So just know, I like the naturopaths because they can I don't, I mean, I could, but I just don't like to do all the paperwork. So they can have connections with compounding pharmacies. You know, I need someone on a progesterone suppository, or, you know, if I need something more, the naturopath can do thyroid medication, all of that. I learned a long time ago because I dabbled in everything, and I'm like, you know what, I gotta find something that I can just stick to that I'm good at and let someone else do and just refer out. So get a good, you know, referral, you know, list going. And the patients will come back and tell you, oh yeah, no, I didn't do well with that. Or like, oh my God, you know, I loved it, that was great, that's just what I needed. But you also need to know when to refer out for like a chiropractic adjustment. So when I went through school, I do mostly fertility and orthopedic disorders. Now, I had someone call the other day who has hypoglycemia. I'm like, well, that's not really what I deal with. And she wanted more guidelines. She was older. And I'm like, I'm at the point now where I'd rather focus my energy on what I know and the people who I want to work on. And so I just referred out to some other acupuncturists, you know, for that. Like that.
Well, didn't you get the hypoglycemia in pregnant women also?
Yeah, but usually they're already seeing either a dietitian or under their OBGYN's care.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, all I can do at that point is guide them as far as diet, but they're already doing that, right?
Right.
And then do the acupuncture to try to allow the body to correct and heal itself, right? And then you just have to trust that, you know, the function of the points, and that your point selection is kind of what you're guided to do at that time. There's not like any magical point. There's not like one point. Now, Dr. Tan or other people would say, oh, well, yes, there is. But again, and those are great, you know, acupuncturists and healers. When I was in school, you know, I kind of realized that there's not one way to practice acupuncture, because if there was one correct way, why are we not all doing it that way? So there's Chinese, there's Japanese, there's auricular, there's with 5-element, there's, you know, quantum. People are just making up, you know, however they're guided to, you know, they're just making it up. It's like, well, I think of it as like religion, right? There's so many religions.
Yeah.
I call God Al, you know, Almighty, right? Because I have people of all different religious beliefs. So I just say Al, right? You know, why are we not all worshiping that one God? I don't know. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do what I know makes people feel good. So, and I have to use really thin needles because I'm doing the Japanese technique, or really thin needles. And when I do the fertility, I can't use a 34 gauge needle and have them be jumping off the table every time I put a needle in, right? If I'm doing orthopedic, yeah, I'll use the thicker needles, right? But when I'm trying to pull them out of their flight and fight and put them into the parasympathetic, it's gonna take longer if I keep hurting them with a needle. And I'll have people come in and the outcomes have all, and again, it's Japanese needle technique. The outcomes for me have all been the same. So, you know, I don't think you have to really, and this is where I differ with the Chinese thought process, is that you don't have to get that Da Chi sensation every single time, right? I mean, other clinicians may argue with that, but what I've you know, been doing this over 25 years, and you know, it works. So that's just my style. So you guys can kind of figure out what you want to do. But I will have people come in who have had acupuncture before, and I didn't like it, I hated it, it hurt. I go, well, just let me do what I do, and you know, we'll see. And if you're still uncomfortable, then you know, it's just not for you. And then they'll come out and be like, I didn't feel any of those needles. I feel great. I'm just, you know, I'm like, great. You know, it worked. So, so you're just gonna have to find your style of what you want. I would encourage the orthopedic with AccuSport and Matt Callison. When I took it, everything was on DVDs. And then I think it went to CDs. Now I think it's just a thumb drive. I don't know. I use a lot of orthopedic in my practice. And I even use it for fertility. If someone's coming in with like low back pain, the nerve innervation for the reproductive system comes out of that kind of T10 to T12 area. So I always have to, if they're coming in and they're already having back pain, I need to work on that back to kind of get it loosened up. So it will have more blood flow going into the reproductive system. But I also need to have my client feeling as physically as well as possible going into a pregnancy. And if their neck is all jacked up or their back's jacked up and they got sciatic pain, it's going to be even more difficult to treat in pregnancy. So if there's any low back pain or sciatica, you got to be really careful, in pregnancy. Neck and shoulder stuff you can always work on, but you want to have them feeling as physically as well going into, a pregnancy. And that kind of gives them peace of mind too, like, oh yeah, let's fix that, yeah. Any questions at all going into this? You guys use teeth? Yeah?
Sorry, 2 minutes?
Sure. I'll take a little break.
I have a question. Like, your 25 years you treat for fertility, so how long your clients or patients, they see the result, they can get naturally pregnant, or they can get or most of them work with IVF? So what's the condition of them?
So you don't want to give them false hope, right? But I've seen crazy things, crazy. I just recently had a 41-year-old, which over 40 and fertility is really difficult. It's really, really challenging. Can it work? Is there a possibility? Is there potential? Yes. Everyone's story is different, and I'll explain that at the end. But 41 went through an IVF cycle. She got 7 eggs for a 41-year-old. It was great. Got 1 egg to fertilize, so I had 1 embryo, and then it arrested. It didn't make it past day 3, and you want it to go day 3 or day 5 for an embryo to grow. And so she told her doctor, look, I'm just going to take some time off. I need to, I'm going to do acupuncture. So she came to see me. I put her on my supplements, doing the acupuncture, 2 block tubes. She had 2 block tubes, had to do IVF. Pregnant. We're like, how? She's going on 9 weeks pregnant now. She's like, Jeneanne, how did that happen? I go, I don't know. Somehow doing all the E-stem, all the supplements, everything. And it's a healthy pregnancy. It's not ectopic, and that's what we were concerned with 2 block tubes. And then I can have a 29-year-old, who's got premature ovarian failure. So with the fertility, you have to take each person as an individual and kind of keep it their story. And I'll explain that more towards the end. But I have a gal, she's 45, she's single, she just wants to try. I go, yeah. As the human being, any human being or any doctor, no one can say it will never happen. But usually my clients, 42 to 46, they're doing donor egg, because to get a chromosomally normal, healthy pregnancy after 40, you're just crossing your fingers. You're just hoping. So, but then there's, I usually will say, and when I explain I can just go ahead and explain how the reproductive system works, because it'll kind of answer the question too. So with the fertility, I'll explain how, I guess let me know if you're tired of all this too. Okay. So with the fertility, I'll explain how the reproductive system works, right? And again, so that they can have an understanding. So I will explain that if my upper body is the uterus, right? And then these are their fallopian tubes, and tucked underneath here are the ovaries. Now the ovaries have hundreds of thousands of eggs in there. And I will explain it as like it's a vineyard of grapevines, right? Hundreds of thousands of grapes on the vine. But each month, a handful are plucked off. Now, to answer your question is that I could have a 30-year-old who has, 2 or 3 eggs in a bunch, but I could have a 42-year-old who's got 10, 12, 15, 20 in a bunch. So it just varies woman to woman. Now, sometimes with the women who have, 20 follicles on each side, those women usually have what's called PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So they have lots of follicles, but not a lot of eggs. And usually they don't release or they don't ovulate the egg. With PCOS, once an egg, so you have an egg that's wrapped in like a water balloon, a follicle, and the egg will pull nutrients from that follicular fluid. So, but sometimes when someone with PCOS has their LH surge to get that egg to release, what happens is it doesn't get released, it just gets reabsorbed, and then it ends up being a cyst. Mm-hmm. And then those women won't have a menstrual cycle for like 45 days, 60 days, because they never ovulated. So PCOS is, those groups of women will be doing IVF too, because they don't release an egg. And so what happens is these eggs are plucked off the vine 150 days prior to an ovulation. This is the life cycle of an egg, 150 days off the vine. At 90 days, the body will start to prime all these eggs. So you have an egg, again, wrapped in a water balloon. So that the body's gonna start priming all these eggs. You fast forward to day 1 of your menstrual bleed, about 3 weeks prior to that, just before the last ovulation. Out of all these eggs, the body will select one to ovulate. So you fast forward to day 1 of your menstrual bleed. Hey, chosen one, you're the one to grow and mature. All these other ones will get reabsorbed. If we didn't have this signal in the woman's body, we would have litters. All these would get released. Now, in IVF, they want to awaken all of these eggs because they want to maximize the fertility, fertilization, and potential, hopefully, chromosomally normal. So then once the egg is, let's see, when we're trying to conceive naturally, I'll just have women start around day 6 to just have intercourse every 3 days. Now, most women don't ovulate on day 14. It's usually day 15, day 16. So to kind of answer your question is how long do we give? A minimum of 3 months, right? Because that's the life cycle of the egg. I don't actually expect a pregnancy naturally until after that 4th, 5th, or 6th month. Because then we're working with those eggs that they're gonna ovulate. If they've been, under a lot of stress, if they haven't been eating well or whatever, it's gonna affect the quality of those eggs. So as long as I know for like 3 months, we've been working on egg quality and blood flow, then I expect a pregnancy by that 4th, 5th, or 6th month. If they're not, then I'll say, you know what, we need to maybe seek out the Western side. We need to figure out kind of what's going on. Now, by the time the women come see me, they've already had all their labs done, their day 3s, so I will have a good indication of like, oh no, that's a big problem. Or like, yeah, no, everything looks good. It's just keep trying. Now, they will also know, I never tell anybody when they're done because you can't. I tell them you'll know in your heart when you're done because you'll just know. Otherwise, you keep moving forward because we never know when it's going to happen. So when we're trying to conceive naturally, I explained to them it's like dating, right? You got to plan the date, you got to go on the date and be like, oh yeah, no, that's not him, Then you got to scroll it through again, you got to plan a date, go on a date. So I look at each time a woman to ovulate, I look at it as like you're dating and you're just, either that spark is going to be there or it's just not. So, so I'll have them have intercourse every 3 days starting on day 6. So it's day 6, 9, 12. And then back to back on day 14, 15. What we want to do is get sperm up past the cervix hanging out in the tubes. Sperm will stay alive in here for 3 to 5 days. Sperm have to regenerate every 48 hours. So my biggest problem that I see, especially with the younger couples, is once her menstrual bleed has stopped, they're having sex every day. Well, by the time you get to ovulation, there's no sperm. It's just semen because it hasn't had a chance. I had a 40-year-old marry a 26-year-old. They were having sex 3 times a day. I said, you can't do that. She goes, how am I gonna tell my husband? I go, you can't, you have to stop. He has to save up that sperm. You guys can go every other day, but you have to save, and the next month they got pregnant. So, and she's 40. I know.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was 40. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. But I had to tell them, you're having too much sex, you know, and he can't do anything on his own because we have to have that sperm kind of saved. So sperm will stay alive in here for 3 to 5 days. I've had a OBGYN. She had no idea how the egg and the sperm met. Right? Because they're doing endometriosis, they're doing babies, they're working on fibroids, they're regulating cycles, all that. And her husband was actually going away on a guy's trip. So they had sex Friday morning. She knows she ovulated on Sunday night. He wasn't even home, pregnant. She's like, Jeneanne, I wouldn't even have sex with him, knowing that I was ovulating and he was going to be gone. I was already mad at him, you know. And then she did the same thing. She's got 2 kids now, you know. So you just are providing an opportunity for an egg and a sperm to meet. And then what I see a lot is that women are doing the ovulation predictor kits and they're doing them incorrectly. So those are checking your LH surge to tell you within 36 to 48 hours that that egg's going to be released from the ovary, right? They usually check the LH surge with their first pee in the mornings. But the LH surge should be checked between 11 and 3, usually with the second urine or the second pee of the day. And so they're checking it in the morning and it's negative, and then they're not checking it till the next day. But they could have started their LH surge at noon. That same day it came out negative. Then they're not checking till the next day. Now it's positive, right? So then they gotta, you know, get through work. Then they gotta wait till their husband gets home, and they gotta eat dinner, then they gotta watch TV, and then they gotta go to bed, and then they gotta do their deed. And it's too late. The egg will stay alive 12 to 24 hours if it's not fertilized. It takes hours for the sperm to get past the cervix and the tubes. Sperm don't know where they're going. They don't have headlamps on, right? Sperm are swimming towards the heat of the ovaries. That's how they get into the tubes. So it's, you know, it takes hours. And then if that egg's already been released, it's just gonna be more challenging. So every few days, if women are not, you don't know when they're ovulating, and I've had this happen several times, just have intercourse every 4 or 5 days, just get sperm up in there. And then within like 2 months, they're pregnant. They're like, how? I go, I don't know. You know, I don't know. And so you just got to get the sperm up in there hanging out. That's all. Now, yeah.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Sure, yeah.
So I hope some women for the IVF process. So the woman have the like a fertility pretty good amount, but after a few days, you know, they went to see the doctor say, oh, the egg like released already. So that's happened to 2 of my clients. I help them do the business too. So I'm wondering, is that the IVF doctor problem? Why you didn't catch the moment the egg release, or is it still the old women's body problem? So they kind of pre-release. So what's that situation?
So that will more have to do with how they're prepping her for the IVF. So if they're not putting her on any birth control, to quiet the ovaries and then start the injectables to awaken them. I've only had that happen one time. And again, this is where I kind of disagree with some of the fertility acupuncturists, is that once a woman gets close to doing her trigger shot to release all these eggs, I really don't like to see them. They want to still come in, but I don't do any e-stim. I don't do anything aggressive. It's just relaxation because they're paying $30,000 for an IVF cycle. And if they ovulate, there's nothing to do. The egg's already been released. They're trying to go in to the ovary and they're taking a needle and they're aspirating. They're pulling the egg out and they'll poke through and they'll pull the egg out and they'll poke through. But if they've already been released, they can't find them in the ovary. So they have to cancel the whole cycle. And that they probably paid with the meds, probably $7,000, $8,000 already. And then they're like, oh, well, let's just try again. So they need to look at what trigger shot they're using, because if they use a Lupron trigger, she shouldn't ovulate. But if they're using just an HCG trigger, then she could ovulate prematurely. So it happened to one of my clients where she felt like, she's like, I feel like I'm ovulating. And her clinic was like, no, you can't do that. Well, they went in and she already ovulated half the eggs. So, and that was a really bad cycle. So it has to do more with the trigger shot, I would think.
Yeah, because I saw that twice happened, I feel so sad,
Yeah, so, but, I wouldn't do any e-stim. Once an egg, the follicle gets to 18 millimeters, then they're gonna think about triggering her, doing the trigger shot. Do you know what clinic she was with?
No, not here, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I think it would have to do with,
too much, yeah.
it would be the trigger shot. But I don't do any e-stim if they're getting ready to go in for a retrieval.
What's the purpose of the e-stim in this case?
Well, e-stim just vibrates the needle.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to bring more awareness over the ovaries, or if we're prepping for a transfer over the uterus.
Okay.
So it just kind of just brings more energy there, and more focus on the body over the reproductive organs. Yeah. Sometimes I'll do it in the low back to help with if there's any lining issues. The protocol for the low back is you switch the red and the black leads. So you kind of do them opposite because you want to shut off the sympathetic nervous system. So we do that along the low back
so what you want is you want to draw the blood into inside, and not out into the our extremities.
Yeah.
Do you also work with male infertility?
I do. Yeah, the men, it's a little bit more challenging. I had one husband come in and he read the Wall Street Journal. I'm like, well.
He's there.
Okay. All right. If there's an issue with their relationship, I'll have him come in, especially for the initial, if they can. If I talk to her on the phone and she's like, oh, my husband's this, that, I go, well, have him come in. He can just be your driver, right? And so once I sit them down and explain everything to them, I like it when the husband just come voluntarily, because I know that when my client, the woman is on the table and her phone's ringing and it's her husband, he's going to realize, he's going to be like, oh, when are you done with that acupuncture? I'm hungry. What do you want to do for dinner? Blah, blah, blah. But then if he knows what she's doing with acupuncture, he's going to be, oh, wait, I forgot to do acupuncture. Okay, I'll call you. Right? So he is now participating in it too. Once they're on the IVF side, a child should be conceived through lovemaking. Once they're on the IVF side, that's out of the picture. And then it's like, yeah, the husband's the driver and he helps pay the credit card bill, right? That's it. He might help with the shots a little bit. But it's a way for them to kind of participate together again and have them be part of the team again. And I've had, sometimes when I had, before COVID, I had my colleague Renee, and I would have her treat the men and I'd treat the women. Because there was a time where I was treating the husband and the wife. And the wife I'd go in with her, and how's everything? Oh, it's great. I'd go with him. I don't even want to have sex with her anymore. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I can't go tell her that. I can't say anything. I mean, it really put me in an awkward situation to where she's like, oh, everything's fine. And he's like, I'm done with this. I don't even want to have sex anymore. I'm like, oh, okay. So, I'll see the men if it's not because their wife's making them come in. It's only if they want to. And then I'll see the husband and wife at the same time. But usually for the men, I don't have time for that. But today I had 3 men today. So it's like, yeah, it's probably maybe 25% of my practice, maybe, yeah. But the men, it's a little bit more challenging because if there's an issue with the sperm where it's deep within the testicles where there's no blood flow, then nothing's going to help. Nothing will help. But if it's an issue, and you can kind of tell with the sperm analysis where the issue might be, but I usually will put them on the supplements, and then they complain about, I take all the supplements. But then I have to say, but this is not just the potential for your child, but a human being, and you don't want to put any effort into it. So once I kind of explain it to them, they're like, oh, okay, fine. Instead of just doing what their wife's telling them to do, right? Some men are, Jeneanne, tell me what I need to do. If I got to chop my right arm off, I'll chop my arm off. What do I need to do? And then there's others like, yeah. So I'm like, okay. So the men, if they're truly there because, they're trying to make a change, yes, I love working with them. But if they're just there because their wife is making them, then they're just, at that point, you'll find in practice, some people just pay the rent. He's just helping me pay the rent. That's it. I'm not getting anything out of that. And, he's just there because he has to be. So, but yes, I do treat them. But usually they'll do okay on their supplements. And usually with the supplements, I'll say, look, you're spending $30,000. You spend a few $100 on some supplements, right? If it can give us, one more fertilized egg, great, we'll take it. So, yeah. So then if the egg is fertilized in the tube, right? It's going to stay in here for 5 days. It's going to go from a 2-cell division to 4, 6, 8, 16, 32, 64, 100 cell divisions. On day 6, it plops into the uterus. The uterus is going to hug and pull that embryo into the endometrium, and it's going to hang out in there for up to another 48 hours. So conceiving naturally, right? So then that embryo is going to split. And half will become the placenta, putting out the blood supply. The other half is going to be the little egg attached by the little umbilical cord. So whatever's going to happen day 6, 7, post-ovulation is going to happen. Now, in an IVF cycle, they're going to take an egg or an embryo that they're going to catch it when the genetic material is just starting to hatch out, a hatching embryo. So when they put that in the uterus and everything closes up nice and tight, probably within 12 hours or so post-transfer, then that embryo splits. So whatever's going to happen in an IVF cycle will happen within 12 hours, 12 to 24 hours. It's either taken or it hasn't. So, but we're just not going to know until they actually do a pregnancy test. What else here? So the uterus, and this is what I tell people if they're doing an IVF transfer, post-transfer, the uterus is like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's nice and sticky and tight in there. When they go in for an ultrasound to check their lining, they want the lining to be 8 millimeters or more, and they want it to have a triple layer. Triple layer is just some glands. I think of it as like snot. It's just that sticky, it's the peanut butter and jelly in there. It's as if they're taking a grain of rice and putting it in a jar of peanut butter. It's not going anywhere. Everything closes up nice and tight in there. So my clients who go on the East Coast to Cornell, they're post-transfer and they're like, well, do I get wheelchaired out? And they're like, what are you talking about? Go to lunch, go, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. Here, Southern California, they wanna be a little bit more pampered. They wanna be, can I get wheelchaired out? Oh, what's my bed rest? You know, what should I do? What should I do? But if you explain it to them about physiologically what happens post-transfer, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll take it easy for a couple days, right? Again, they've spent $30,000. It's like, yeah, you know, just take it easy. You know, I've had other women, can I do my Pilates, my bar method? I'm like, no, just settle down. And then you just have to kind of more allow it to happen. And just know that, you know, if you've been working with them over, you know, a few months, that, you know, they're ready, their body's ready. So, and you just have to kind of reassure them that you've put forth all the time and effort. And now we just have to go through this procedure to get that little one in you. So when it comes to IVF, you know, it works, it doesn't work, right? So there's a book out there that hardly anybody knows about. I'm gonna see if I can even find it anymore. That's called Parenting Begins Before Conception. So, and I don't talk about it, I could talk it like to Jackie about this because it gets a little bit more spiritual, right? And some people, again, you're gonna get people of all different religious beliefs and they're not gonna really wanna hear that spiritual side, right? And then I say, well, if there's a belief in God, then we're all God's children, you know, and we just, you know, have to, you know, use you as a vessel, right? You can explain it from a religious standpoint or a spiritual standpoint, and then you got to kind of gauge, you know, who's for what. If they're wearing a cross with a necklace or the, you know, oh, my husband's a pastor, you're like, oh, okay, well, I'll explain the, you know, religious, you know, side to you. But the Eastern philosophy says that when an egg and a sperm come together, it's said to be two souls coming together to form one. When a woman becomes pregnant and makes it through the first trimester, then it's said that that soul has found its home. It's decided to stay. It will then take on more of a human form that will go on to become your child for you to guide and love and nurture and raise. And so I will look at the eggs inside of her as not only having that potential to fertilize, but also that potential to stay. I will look at the uterus as a home. Each time you ovulate, it's just an opportunity for two little ones to meet. That's it. So in an IVF cycle, we have human beings involved, looking under a microscope, you know, grabbing an egg and grabbing a sperm. We have a doctor involved, how much pressure they're applying on the catheter to get the embryo, you know, past the cervix in the uterus. You know, if they go too fast, if they go too slow, if they go in and out, that disrupts everything. And so I just know that I've done my part and to try to make the doctor's job easier, to have them relaxed, focused, get them to a transfer. You know, that's the goal. I'll tell them my role with you is to support you through the process. My goal with you is to get to a transfer. And then that works out pretty well. So. And again, you know, if you go in and explain things to them to how they can understand things and not like, oh, I'm the acupuncturist, I'm going to get you pregnant. I'm like, I tell them, I am not going to get you pregnant. Can I allow it to happen? Sure. Can I make your body the vessel to receive the little soul? Yes. Can I control all of that? No. So the acupuncture is one of my tools. You know, that's it. And then I'll say, you know, I look at an embryo as just as with you and I, that it has a purpose. It has an ultimate fate and destiny that it will fulfill. I've seen beautiful chromosomally normally tested embryos not work. And I've seen average and below average, just get them in, you know, become twins. So, you know, it's just, you know, you just have to kind of set expectations and not give them false hope. That's all. And getting back to your client, everyone's story is different. Everyone's story. And I'll tell people, because there's some really good doctors and there's some really bad doctors. And I'll be like, I won't pull anybody away from a clinic that they're at. But if I see things going really, really bad, I'll say, you know what? I think it's now time for a second opinion, right? And I know all the clinics, I know how all the doctors work, I know all the protocols. I can tell what doctor someone's with by if they're wearing estrogen patches, if they're not, I just know how the ins and outs of how all the clinics, kind of work. So I can kind of guide them as to kind of what to expect. So, and that's helpful for them. You guys need a break here? I can wrap up here in a few minutes. Too much, not enough. Okay. TDP lamps. You guys have the TDP lamps?
Yes.
Okay. So what I've learned over the years is don't get the fancy ones. Get the basic ones. Basic. I never use the timer because again, I'm trying to take them out of their fight, and if you hear that tick, 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 so I just turn it on and I leave it on. My heat lamps are on all day long. I come in the morning and I turn them all on, they just stay on. You want to get them where the heat lamp head itself you come off. If you get just the one continuous cord, if the heat lamp goes out, you got to buy a whole new machine. And those are usually like $300. And then that's just a waste of money. So I always have an extra heat lamp head at my office because I never know when they're going to go out. I'm usually one who will try to fix everything, but I've pulled so many TDP lamps apart. I know how the fuses go. I know how they connect. I know when it's time. Yeah, I can't fix that, and I need to, just buy a whole new one. But I haven't bought a new heat lamp in years. I'll buy heat lamp heads. Because those I don't want to mess with, I just, toss them and I just attach a new head to it and it's fine. But you don't want to, I usually use the heat lamp on their feet because the majority of the people, their feet get cold. And then they're focused the whole time, oh my gosh, my feet are so cold, I wish they put something on my feet. So I just normally, I'll even sometimes wrap them in a warm towel. Because I want to keep their feet warm, because I don't want them to lose their focus off of what the guided imagery is and then start thinking about how cold my feet are. So, but yeah, just kind of know how the heat lamps work. I've, torn so many apart and used spare parts here and there. And mine are all raggedy, rickety with PVC pipe kind of holding them up because they fall down all the time. So I just put a piece of PVC in there and they just stay up. But yeah, don't buy the fancy ones. Get the basic models, one that you can just stay on the whole time and you can replace the head out. That's all.
Do you find with other places other than L.A. or like?
I get my stuff through WABO. It used to be World Health something, WABBO. It's kind of where I get my needles and all that stuff. Wherever you want to get them.
Yeah.
They're all about the same price.
Okay.
You're not gonna, but if they, I don't know if they had just the heat lamp heads though. Lassos you're talking about? Yeah. And there's other places.
Okay.
And like, if I find something that works for me, I just kind of stick with it. So I mean, I haven't been to the symposium in so long. I don't even know what's new out there. I don't know. So yeah, just keep it simple with that. The cups, I didn't bring one in, but I like, and you guys can, this is stuff from my offices that is just in storage. I like to get the cups with the little ridges on them because if you do set them up, they don't fall over, right? And if you're doing sliding cups, it's kind of nice to have this ridge to kind of, if you have oil on your hands, if you just have the rounded one, it's a little bit more challenging. So any of the cups that you buy, make sure that they have the, the ridge on the bottom, so they just sit up. This is up at, do you guys use smokeless moxa at all? Or? Yeah. So You know DXD of the herb store? Yeah. So I usually buy these by the case. This is what I use to shake my moxa often, because this diameter is perfect, right? So if you have, do you guys have glass jars that you shake the moxa off into? Oh my God. Oh my gosh. So, once this is lit, you can just, once the ash starts getting around there, yeah, you just shake the ash off. Right? Go back to doing what you're doing. You don't have to go back to the extinguisher and try to get some of the ash off and all that, right? You just shake it, da da da. This is too big. It's, what do you, this is too much math for me, but this diameter is too big and it's going to break this, right? Well, can we go into the clinic at all?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll show you. And then, yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, and then I have the extinguishers that we can put them into. So, yeah, I buy these at DXD. I need to actually run up there, see if they're open, because I need more. So I'll send home for breech babies, I'll send them home with a box of moxa, right? And a little jar. I charge them $50 to come in. Let me show you how to do it. You gotta bring your husband in, because their bellies are big, they can't do it themselves. I go, you have to bring someone in. So I'll show them how to do it. What this cost me, like $1, right? Another $3, $4 to show them how to do moxa. But then, and when I show the husbands how to do the moxa, I'm like, you cannot take your eyes off the tip of this moxa stick. If she asks you a question, you pull it away. And you say, what, honey? Your eyes have to be glued to the end of this moxa stick. Otherwise, you're gonna burn her. And she will probably kick you, and then you'll end up in the ER with a broken jaw. So yeah, we'll go into the clinic and I'll show you how to use all that stuff. I didn't bring my massage oil. It took me a long time to find my massage oil. I use Soothing Touch, Muscle Comfort. So again, it's part of instilling that memory in them. If Jackie smelled the massage oil, it would bring her back to when she was on the acupuncture table. Yeah. So any of these coasters from any bar, Hard Rock Cafe. This is when I went to a conference. I set my massage oils on these because it absorbs all the massage oil. Otherwise, they just get messy everywhere, right?
Oh, that's
So, and then if I go to like a restaurant and they have these, I'll just snag like 10, 12, 15 of them. And then I'll just, once they're full, then I just toss them. So, yeah. Oh. Let's see what else here.
What's the name of your moxa that you use? Jeneanne, what is the name of their moxa, the green?
So the green one, I don't know the name of it. I can give you guys all that information. Oh, this is through Wabo. So they actually sold, yeah, so that's the one I like. And that's like $2.75 a box. This is another one. It's a little bit more denser. It still smells good, but it's like $4.50. I'm like, well, I get the same thing with that. I think this one might have holes in it, right? But I know that they switched out when they sold the company, they changed, even with the massage oil. I've been using the massage oil for over 20 years. And it was made by some yogis in New Mexico. Really? And then they sold it. Yeah, they sold it. And I'm like, you guys changed it. They're like, no, we didn't. It's the same ingredients. I'm like, no, I know the smell. You changed it. So, but now I'm kind of used to that. So.
The essential oils are so expensive sometimes.
Yeah, so they cut corners somewhere. It could be the same ingredients, but it's not.
Or not the same producer of the essential.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I was like, no, you guys changed something, but it's okay. Let's see. So I use, oh, and then when you're doing your moxa, it's best. This is from, you guys know Casey Hanover? Casey? This is his trick. when you're doing lighting for moxa, we do the firecrackers, use 2 cotton balls, not 1. And dip it in the 91% alcohol. Okay, and you'll get a nice good suction in there. I use a product called Empower for disinfecting my cups. So it's an enzymatic Empower. You can buy it on Amazon. So I disinfect the cups with that, so it gets all of any blood or anything off of it too. So I'll usually, or if I do have someone that has some bled a little bit, I'll go just soak that cup. But sometimes I'll just clean if I'm like going around. I'll just use one of the like a Clorox wipe or something and just clean the cup as well as I can. But I usually will soak all the cups once or twice a week. So just in the disinfectant. I use table warmers. So if you guys are going into kind of backtrack here, just for the office space, right, in your rooms. So when I built my first office, it was one, you want to kind of look at where the air conditioner vents are. Because when I built my first office, the architect had one of the treatment rooms right over the duct. I'm like, that's not gonna work. So I rearranged it, refigured it, and I made where that loud air duct was, I made that my reception place. And then I refigured the rooms so they're not gonna have, now I've also had, I've also covered them. You can get little covers for those that will direct the air a different direction. Or sometimes I've even used a magnet, and I put a whole magnet over that. So it won't go directly down onto my client.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah, and then in that office, I actually, because we built it from the ground up, I staggered the outlets. So there were no two from one room to another. There were no joining. I'm a really stickler for noise. And so I had them offset all the electrical outlets in every room. So there, no 2 rooms had that joining hole, is my thickness. And then the walls, I had them go up an extra 6 inches and then put 6 inches of insulation in, yeah, just to dampen the noise. And then, so I'm a really stickler for, because my clients are, paying money to come in and relax. And you'll notice in other acupuncture offices, it's, if you're on the table, if you've had a treatment, you can hear.
That's how it is in the clinic, like we have the rooms.
You can hear
like,
everything.
Everything that everyone's saying.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
the
like,
walls are so thin.
yeah, I'm like, no. So,
That's such a good point.
yeah.
That's such a good point.
Yeah, and so then even with the outlets, because I use for my heaters for the rooms, even though the air's on, I'll always keep the rooms warm. Unless someone's, 39 weeks pregnant or unless they're menopausal, I'll accommodate for that. But usually all my clients are cold. So I have the heaters that are the oil heaters, right? The radiator heaters, because once those are warmed up, between clients, when I'm changing the rooms over, I'll throw the towels on there. And everybody loves the warm
Oh,
towels.
that's such a good idea.
They're like, oh my God, the towels are so warm, right? Yeah. And so, but if you just have the heater that blows air, you can't warm, and they're noisy, it's more noise. The oil heaters, there's no noise. And so I'll use it at double, like heats the room, there's no noise, and I can warm my towels up on them. Oh my God, the clients love the warm towels, yeah. And that heater is like $40, right? But you'll also have to be careful that you can't, and this is, usually the oil lamp heater has to have its designated own outlet. Like when my office out where I'm at now, I paid like $600 each for like 4 new outlets, right? But I knew you don't want to blow a fuse. And so if I'm up at the office on Saturday or Sunday, there's no maintenance people around. If I blow a fuse, then it blew the whole building or you know, my whole office. So you want to kind of stagger your heat lamps. You don't want to use the same outlet with the heat lamp and a oil radiator heater. It'll blow the fuse, and then you're kind of screwed. But if you have one of the blow heaters, the wattage is different and you can. But yeah, I have designated outlets for my heaters and my heat lamps. So let's see what else. I use a Stericycle, just the mail-in biohazard containers. It's just easy. Yeah, so you just Stericycle's mail-in program. I used to have a whole account with Stericycle and moved so many offices. I'm like, yeah, just keep it simple. I do use a credit card terminal. I just okay, we might have to bleep this on here, or the batteries. Oh. So just since COVID, because I do more quantity, right? So doesn't really matter to me really that much. But yeah, however you want to, you know, collect your money, but cash is always good. Yeah. So Venmo, Zelle, any of those. Yeah. What else here? I have to have some. I have to have. I probably think that probably half of my. I have to have some credit card because I have to show that I'm paying my rent and paying all my expenses, all my bills out of those credit card payments. So I'm really trying to make it show that I don't make any money other than paying, you know, for the necessities, because taxes will kill you. Just saying. That's where the bookkeeper comes in. So you really have to kind of, you know, figure out, you know, how much money you're going to kind of show you're making versus how much money you're actually bringing in. So just off the, yeah. I would do as much cash as you can. Insurance, I've never really taken insurance, and early on, I must have somehow gotten on some insurance because some of them will say I'm in network, but I am out of network. Nobody pays for fertility, so I'm like, you know, doesn't make sense for me to be a part of any network. So I do give a super bill, and that's all in my QuickBooks, and you just fill it all out and you email it to them. It shows paid, and then email it to them. But right now, it was one with the United Health. They're just being ridiculous. I don't know. they want my social security number, they want my employer tax ID number, they want, they just, I'm like, then they're saying I'm in network, and I'm like, I'm not in network with anybody. Anyway, so insurance, I wouldn't do.
Do you use an electronic health record for your patients, or you?
I do a paper chart, and then I scan everything, and then we once everything's scanned into QuickBooks, then we shred everything. So I don't really have any charts anymore.
Oh, so you can keep all that inside of QuickBooks?
You just scan it all in, and so if a patient comes in that, like if Jackie came in, I could just go in my QuickBooks, I could just punch in her name and her chart would come up for me. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. So that way you don't have to kind of look and try to find a chart or anything. Yeah. I still am holding on to some charts, I think. Everything got shredded years ago, so.
What's the app you use for making appointment?
For what?
Make appointment.
They usually would just call or text me. I'm at the, I get people calling all the time about increasing your patient numbers and all of that. Well, I don't really do the general population. Mine is all just referral from either doctors or clinics or other patients. So I don't like working on the general population because one, and I really don't do irregular anymore because I could never remember how many I put in. And then because I do the massage, I can throw my hands under there, and if one fell out, it would jab me, right? But I know that all my fertility clients, I know if they have hepatitis or HIV or, anything, that's whatever. And so I know that they're clean. Or if they're not, I know. But if someone just off the street comes in, I'm like, so I do it to protect myself. I don't take I don't do walk-ins, I don't take just off the street.
So how did you build that network with the doctors and clinics and everything? Like, how long did that take you?
Yeah.
One of my friends referred me to you. That's how I knew who you were. I was looking at the shoes.
So, again, the people you're supposed to see will find you.
Yeah, like when we just graduated and when we started, how we have that people find us.
I was in the same position. I was in the same boat. Fortunately, when I had only been in practice like 2 years, I was working in an orthopedic clinic. And so working in a physical therapy office. And so that got me some referrals, right? And then right in 2001 is when all the fertility stuff started happening. Now with the fertility, they came out with a study back in 2001 showing that acupuncture helped increase the chances of take-home baby and pregnancy through IVF, right? Great. Well, that got us in the door, right? And then the only issue now is because there've been lots of studies done with IVF and acupuncture, that there was actually a meta-analysis done a few years back where it took like 10 different protocols for IVF and acupuncture, and they didn't show that it really increased it that much. Right? So what's happened is the technology on the Western side has gotten so pinpoint and so good.
Yeah.
We're just an adjunct now. We're not going to increase it that much anymore. So that's why the way it's going to start shifting is that we're here to help. We're here to support the patient through the process and to help the doctor make their job easier, again, by having them relaxed and focused, right? Even though we know we're doing the work, we know what we're doing. But yeah, I don't know. And when I first started, I was younger than, so with fertility, the age doesn't change. It's like 30 to 45, really. And when I started, I was younger than most of my clientele. And then I became the same age, and now I'm an old lady kind of poking these people now. And so there was in 2001, 2002, somewhere in there, I had one of my clients was with a clinic, and that doctor was like, oh, you know, can you come talk to us? And so I was like one of the first ones, right? And so you guys know Marilyn Allen? Yeah, she does acupuncture today, or malpractice insurance. So she was doing a kind of like a business support group, right? And at the time there was a gal in my office, she said, Jeneanne, you should come to the support group, you should come. I'm like, well, I don't really need it, I'm fine. Oh no, come. So I went up there one day and they're all sitting around in a circle, there's probably 10 of them or 12. And they're going around and Marilyn says, oh, tell us what's going on in your practice, right? And I'm like, okay. So they get to one person, they're like, oh, you know, I met with a cardiologist and, you know, I think I'm gonna be able to work in his office and, you know, maybe do a study. And like, yeah. Other person, well, I don't know how I'm gonna make rent this month. You know, I only saw like 5 people. I'm like, okay, we'll do this and this and this. And going around the circle, they finally get to me and I'm like, what? Things are great. I'm busy. You know, I've worked with these fertility patients. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I can't see them all. You know, you guys should just call and get on their list. Well, then I went to the next meeting, right? And they had already prescription pads with everybody's names on it. Said, oh, we're gonna give these to all the doctors and we're gonna charge $500. We're gonna do all this. And I'm like, oh, what? What just happened? You know, you never asked me to be a part of that, and you guys are like taking it more as like a business, and these are actually people, you know, who need our help. You just want it for patient numbers and to pay your bills. And then the next meeting I went to, they're like, oh, if you don't charge this much, then you're doing an injustice to our profession. I'm like, what? And then my phone stopped ringing.
Wow.
I'm like, oh crud, what did I just do? I just opened Pandora's box for them, right? That's when I realized people I'm supposed to see will find me.
Yeah.
Now, none of those people are in San Diego anymore. None of them are practicing here. And it's all kind of come back around to me because I had to gain the trust of not the doctors, but the nurses and the staff at the clinics. So I had to get them to recognize me and who I am, right? And then I let my patients speak for me. So, oh, we love Jeneanne. Oh, we gotta see Jeneanne. Well, then what happened is at one of the clinics, another acupuncturist had referred someone to the clinic, and then the nurses are like, oh, you should go see Jeneanne. And then they got back to that acupuncturist, and then he was upset. And then, so then they started just handing out a list. No nurse was allowed to refer to me directly anymore.
Oh my
And
God.
I'm like, well, what about the loyalty? What about the whole process of, I'm a representative of these clinics too, right? And so then I had to go back, okay, fine. I'm just the people who find me, I'm supposed to see. And so you're gonna have to go with it like that. Because I thought, you know, when I got out of school, like, oh, I know so-and-so, and I know so-and-so, and they know so many people, they're gonna refer so many people to me, and nothing. So you just have to, you know, kind of cultivate it, and eventually, you know, you'll get your practice going. Yeah.
So like, we have business class, we were told, like me, for example, I really have passion for fertility. But like one of the teachers said, you have the passion, but maybe you just not just start like specialize that, maybe you cannot make a living. So, you know what I mean? So I'm thinking, should I just, be realistic, do everything, treat pain, something like that, I can treat, but I'm not really not impatient that, I need to stick to my dream, stick to my passion.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't have patience at the beginning.
Well,
so.
you're still gonna have those people who are gonna come in and help pay the rent, right? Yeah, so you do need those. And I do, the other stuff, but I just really enjoy the fertility. That's what I enjoy. And to make someone's pain go away, like, oh, Jeneanne, yeah, I feel great. Oh, yeah, good. But to have an impact on someone, 15 years later.
And I wasn't IVF.
That's huge.
Like,
Yeah.
I have two now.
Yeah,
I had my most spiritual experiences in your room.
Yeah.
Literally. I
Yeah.
remember just like, it's so bizarre.
Yeah. So I would, there's more of so I don't do a lot of herbs. I'll refer out for that. So if someone needs herbs, again, I have my referral of people who I refer, other acupuncturists that has a herbal pharmacy, or sometimes I'll refer them down here. Because the herbs, they just go bad, right? And I don't do a lot. So, but if you were to more focus on like the herbal part of that and natural fertility, and women start getting pregnant, again, probably reasonable expectations 6 months after you've been working with them. And if you explain to them how the reproductive system works, I didn't design the woman's reproductive system. You release 1 egg a month out of a calendar year of 12 months, right? Someone in their 20s to 30s probably have an 8 to 10 month that they can, out of that calendar year, that they can conceive. Someone 35 to 38, it probably goes down to about maybe 6 times a year. In their 40s, maybe 2, 3, 4 times a year. And then their husband has a cold, right? Well, that's done, right? Or they're on a business trip. So now you're down to like 3 times to really conceive in a year. So if you can kind of explain to them how the reproductive system works and let them be a part of it too, and they do their homework, every 3 days, that's gonna happen. Yeah. So,
No, sorry, interrupt you. I was wondering what other treatments apart from the fertility then, because you mentioned you do all the other things just to pay the bills. So what other treatments would you pick up to fill in the gap? What did you pick up to fill in the gap? When did it
I
happen?
usually, I do orthopedic and fertility. Probably 80% of what I do is fertility. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I was curious about that.
And I have my line of supplements
Okay.
that I'll explain in a minute.
How many patients do you typically treat in an hour?
Now, well, I'm on the downhill in my career. There's a point where I was seeing 90 to 100 patients a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many patients?
I would have five treatment rooms, sometimes 6, just all day long. Again, I'm not doing all the work.
Yeah.
I'm spending maybe 10 minutes with them.
Yeah.
Right? Guided imagery, let that do all the work, and then I come and pull the needles, do a little massage, and that's it.
So you mind sharing the specific guided imagery that you use?
Yeah, I wish the Alexis worked because I could do that.
I don't think we had good guided imagery. I just had music. I just needed the music.
Yeah, I probably didn't have the guided
Yeah, you
imagery.
didn't have guided.
So then I would walk you through a guided imagery.
Yeah.
So what I hated when I was having a treatment is they would leave and say, okay, just relax.
Right.
after 10 to 15 minutes of having the needles in, you'll switch from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. So you got to give it that 10, 15 minutes, right? And then, but I don't want it to be like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? It's like, this is not relaxing. Or you're under the fluorescent lights, right? You know, I have eye pillows. I put eye pillows on everything. And then my rooms are really dark. I work with a little green light and a candle. I know my treatment room so well, if I were blind, I could still get around my room. I know where everything is. Melody will come do a massage and she'll move the Moxa cup somewhere and she'll put it in the drawer. I'm like,
Sorry.
wait, that was out of place. Wait, that's not where it needs to be. Because I could just work in the dark. I know where everything is.
Needle in the dark?
Sure. Yeah. When I was here, we had the needle blindfolded and with clothes on. So we had to let our fingers find the point, like spleen 6. We had to find blindfolded. We had to find through the clothes, find the point. So my fingers just know. You'll just like come right into the point. You'll just know exactly where everything is. It just takes repetition. You just have to repeat it. So yeah, I could find everything. I just know the ovaries are right off your ASIS. You plop down immediately like a pool table, little corner pocket there. Your ovaries are deep underneath there. So yeah, I could find everything.
In the Elizabeth's Japanese class, we had to do some palpating.
Oh, yeah.
With our eyes. She was saying that in Japan, like acupuncture is the profession of the blind. Like,
oh yeah,
the acupuncturists in Japan are blind.
Yeah. So you'll just know. It's easier. I mean, it's been so long. I don't even know all the names of the points, but learning the pinyin, it tells you exactly what the point is. So in the crevice next to the like, oh, there it is. Yeah. So learn the pinyin. So how do you get a practice going? It will eventually be kind of word of mouth. It will.
How did you get so well trained on your specialization in fertility?
When I went through, I would drive to LA, I would fly to San Francisco, I would fly to Texas, I'd go to the East Coast. Whenever there was like someone talking anything on fertility, like Mickey Shima. He's not a fertility doctor, acupuncturist, Mickey Shima. No, he's up in Northern California. Anyway, I would go wherever there was someone talking on fertility. I would go, San Francisco, everywhere. And so I would take bits and pieces of each of what those people said, right? And then I would put it up in here, and I remember that. There was a time I was up in LA, and there was another acupuncturist, local gal here, who, we're friends. And I said, what are you doing here? She goes, oh, because she had a huge work comp practice. And when one of the governors took office, he axed the work comp for acupuncturists. Because they were getting like $400 as treatment. It was like cash, it was like crazy. And then they axed it, and I said, what are you doing here? She goes, oh, well, this is the next niche. I'm like, oh, that's why you're doing it?
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, so it was after that circle with, Marilyn Allen, and I'm like, you know what? And then I would bring other acupuncturists in, and I would train them. I'd show them how to treat people. I would get them credentialed in clinics, because you have to be credentialed. And then they'd be like, oh, okay, I'm busy, I'm gonna go do my own. I'm like, oh, wait, what did I just do? You're now my competition, right? I introduced you to everybody. So I kind of really have taken a step back. I don't know what any of my other colleagues are doing. I just kind of stay true to what I'm doing because it makes me feel good. So I love what I do. My clients they're all stressed out. I go, I get to work in warm, dark rooms all day, listening to relaxing music and making people feel good, you know? So there was a round table I was at one time, and they were going around the circle asking everybody what they did for a profession. I'm like, what am I gonna say? Oh, I'm an acupuncturist. Fine. So they finally got to me, and I just told them what I do. I said, I am a complete stranger. I get people almost naked on the table. I poke them with needles, and then they pay me. And that's it. Yeah. And there's no, I mean, as for me, it's very similar to a massage. I have them take their costume off. I've only had one person who wouldn't take all their jewelry off and all of that. But I make them, I get them in their, their underwear, their bra and their chonies, right? And I cover them with towels. I said, you'll be covered the whole time. It's very similar to a massage. And, but then when you think about it, it's like, well, we're really the only profession, other than maybe massage therapists, that you could get someone, and nobody's ever questioned it. They just do it. I tell them what to do, and they just get almost naked on the table. Like, now you might have a problem with women getting naked on the table. That might be a lawsuit, but no.
Not really, I'm gay, so.
Oh, okay, well, still.
Just have to put a flag there.
Yeah. That would work. But it's I try to get them to kind of get to the raw of kind of who they are, and that's where kind of real healing can start working, is when they take off their costume, right? And they're just left on the table with their thoughts. And however their treatment experience is going to be based on their thoughts. So again, if they're cold, or if you're hurting them, or whatever. So I try to change their thoughts on the table. So when Jackie was there, I would walk them through a guided imagery.
I remember we had the moxa. That's when the
Yeah.
bonding began.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
really weird. I'm having this total full circle moment, because my first child, when I was pregnant with her, she opened the door for me being very spiritual, and it started with your acupuncture. I'm really starting to realize that. Because my spiritual experience was with her in my belly.
Yeah.
But then I keep telling her, I said, because of you, I'm very spiritual. And I'm very, very spiritual.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm here now, but this is so beyond right now.
Yeah.
I'm having this.
Yeah.
It started with being pregnant and on the table.
Yeah.
It starts so much earlier. You're totally right.
So when you can realize the impact, and I never know who's listening to the words I'm saying. I never know, but I'll have people come back and say, I really listened to what you told me last week. Oh my God, what did I tell them? There's something that it will start kind of flowing, right? I don't have
channel,
any.
you're like a channel.
Yeah, I don't have any. It's just when you're in that room, you're just, whatever it is, it just kind of, whatever that gift is, it just transpires, it just happens. And if you're trying to think, well, what page was that? When was I supposed to needle? So there's another colleague who's always kind of struggled, with their practice. And so she was actually working at a fertility clinic doing their acupuncture. So I said, and with my schedule, I couldn't go over there, couldn't do any of that. So I said, oh, but they have their own acupuncturist in the house, so you're fine. Oh, my client came back, she says, that was the worst experience ever. She was trying to measure out the points, and she was saying, does Jeneanne do it this way? And she's like, she drove me crazy. And that gal keeps calling me for referrals, and I just can't because of the experience of one of my clients had. She says it's the worst session she's ever had at the moment of her IVF transfer. I'm like, well.
That's stressful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So just be conscious of kind of, you're not there to kind of, you're not there to just fix them, right? You're just, again, one of the tools. When someone's come to see you, they're asking for help, right? And so, you can guide them,
So you always like yourself, the office, you don't have other, people work together?
Well now, so the office that I opened where we built that office, that I moved over to my big spa, and then this acupuncturist I worked with took over a new space, and so right before COVID, I joined back with her. So I told her I don't want to be on the lease anymore. I don't want to be responsible for that. I want to kind of now at this point just pay my rent, do my job, and I don't want to have to pay CAM fees. I don't want to have to, want to pay any extra. I don't want to pay any of that. So now, I mean, I'm making more money now because my overhead is so low. There was a time with the spa, we were doing $250,000 a year, but I didn't have any money.
Yeah,
It was all the overhead, all the employees were getting paid, everybody else was getting paid, but I wasn't making any money. And I had all the responsibilities. I said, I don't want any of those responsibilities anymore. That would be my, gift to you is keep it simple.
So you're saying like rent from a practice, like rent a room? Don't go on our own, or just like go under the wing of another office and just rent a room from there?
Until you get clientele established,
Right,
I would just rent a room.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I went, renting one room, then 2 rooms,
I
and
see.
then like 3 rooms. And then all of a sudden, now I have, money coming in. Now it's like, okay, now I need 5 rooms. But now I just work out of 2, and I don't want, today, because I had to be here, I did 5 rooms. So I already saw 10, 11 people this morning, and then got here. I gotta go back and clean all the rooms.
How long do you schedule your patients for? Like what?
An hour.
1 hour?
So how do you scale from 1 room to 5? I know obviously you have your calendar and the patients that are coming in, but you're also renting. Does that make sense, my question?
How do you do what? How do I scale it? How do I do it?
Yeah, how do you scale from 1 to 5 or 5 to 2 or 3? Like, do you have like a calendar? Like, do the
Yeah.
book in advance? Like,
Yeah, I have a whole calendar, yeah. It's all, I use Outlook.
okay.
So Outlook, everything's, and I have my home computer, my office computer are linked. So even when I'm at home, and before COVID, I had a whole phone system, the landlines, all of that.
Yeah.
And then when COVID hit, I don't know with HIPAA, how legal it is, but I just use a cell phone now.
Oh, okay.
They just text me. I said, and now I'm at the point, don't even call.
Yeah.
Just text, because I can't come out of a room and then listen to a voicemail.
Right.
I'm like, just text me. And then, yeah.
Well, I mean, these are clients you kind of know already, so it
Yeah.
makes complete sense.
So what I do is, I have 2 business phones. One's for the supplements. So this is my office phone that has my calendar on it. This one's on the calendar. This is just contacts. So, get someone here. There's a new patient. So I have on one of my contacts, I have information says my office. That doesn't have a name on it, so you guys can look at it. Well, kind of. So it has my office number, the location, their treatment time, the treatment day, my online forms to go ahead and fill out before the treatment. They charge $4 for parking, so I said it's gonna be $4 for parking.
Yeah.
So.
Just a general info.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that's easier to do it like that, to copy and paste it, than to answer an email. Or if they get or call in on the phone, I'll say, instead of giving them, I'll say, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead, this is your cell number, I'm gonna go ahead and text you over my location and all the information. So, but then on this, so I have my calendar on my phone too. So it's on my computers
Yeah.
and it's on my phone. So I could be at a ball game or at a concert and someone texts me and I'm like, they're like, you have an appointment on Monday at 3? I'm like, yeah.
Okay, cool.
And I go ahead and just schedule them.
So like, but then my issue is like, okay, so you have this space and you're renting this space, and now one day you only have, say, one client, or 2 clients, but then tomorrow.
I could have 10 or 12 the next day.
Yeah.
My patient numbers for the week are usually the same. But, and sometimes if I go to IVF transfer, I have to block off like three hours for that.
Gotcha. All right.
So, or I'll stay at the office, and I'll enter all my QuickBooks, all my new patients and all the sales. I should have brought that. Oh yeah, I do have. So I have, so once a week, I usually go through and do all my billing. So let's see here. So this is, well, I'm not really supposed to show you for different reasons, but, so I have my, this is my calendar, right? And so these are all, I color coded new patients, orange, regular patients just in blue, and I put kind of how much they pay.
Okay,
Right?
actually that answered my question. So
Yeah.
you stagger them.
Yeah, so this is all on Outlook.
Right.
And then I enter all the credit card receipts into QuickBooks like once a week. So, yeah. So then my bookkeeper can look and see how much money's come in, blah, 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 all that stuff.
Except for cash.
Except for cash.
Yeah.
Or Venmo.
What cash?
So my bookkeeper is
Don't know what
like,
you're
look,
talking about.
if it's not on the computer, it doesn't exist. If he's like, if I don't see it,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Like
exist.
then.
I'm like, okay, yeah. Yeah, so, but, you know, in the beginning, I just had the appointment book. And, you know, I still keep those because I could go back, because Jackie was there when I was doing the appointment book. So it's kind of fun to go back and look at all the appointments again. You know, see, oh, yeah, I remember that person. Oh, I remember that
I
person.
remember
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
I went to the physical therapy,
Yeah.
so they just came in.
Yeah.
You just write in.
So, but I would you can just do a schedule book for now. Yeah, that's fine.
I use Square. They have a free appointment app and it sends an automatic text reminder. It'll send them a confirmation, a reminder 2 days before, and a reminder 2 hours before.
you
And you
know
don't
what?
do anything. It's completely free. You don't have
Yeah.
to check them out with a credit card in order to use it.
Okay.
You just have to have some income on Square.
My
it's free.
hairdresser uses that.
Yeah,
and once
it's
you book
really
the appointment-
convenient.
Yeah, so there's
Okay.
other
It'll
ways
send an
to do it.
address. You can have a template.
Mhm.
It's great.
That's cool. That's
And I
actually
have a
really
Google
cool.
Voice number for my business, and it's an app on my phone, and it's totally free, and you can just text people from it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you don't have to use your personal one. Yeah, and I think it takes a deposit, well, the one I use, the Square, for the hairdresser, it actually takes the deposit for your commitment to show that you're gonna be there.
Yeah, you can set it up that way, or you don't
Yeah.
have to.
Okay.
It's totally up to you.
Yeah, whatever system you decide to use,
Mhm.
you just have to train the patients. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm not trainable. I don't like, I'm like, no, I don't need one more thing. Yeah, so that's too much. Let's see, hydroculators, you guys do hot packs?
Not anymore.
Oh.
I stopped using them during COVID.
Okay. So I have my hydroculator. I use it a lot. I use hot packs a lot on my women. But I keep it on a timer. So you just get one of those timers. It comes on at 8 and it goes off at 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So that way it's not kind of running the whole time. So when I come in the office, I usually start my first patient around 10:30. And so by the time I get there, the hot packs are hot. So. We did Outlook, calendar, QuickBooks. I think that's kind of about it. So I do have a kind of a side business that, so I started, these fertility supplements. There's no herbs in them though, so, I have one for men and women, but it's more for, egg quality and sperm quality. So, I used to put women on like 20 different pills back in the early 2000s. So in 2009, I actually encapsulated it and have urologists will, put their, men on them. But if I wasn't in acupuncture, I wouldn't have come up with, fertility supplements. So they're all for the mitochondria of the cell. So I could actually take this one and slap anything that's good for your skin or good for your heart is good for fertility. So this one I could put a dermatological label on or, heart, and it would be fine.
You made it by yourself?
Yeah, this is my product, yeah. Yeah, you're good.
You have manufactured?
Yeah. To do a run of supplements, just a batch, is about $30,000.
Wow.
But I can make.
Yeah. So do you market it only at your facility or
No,
anywhere?
it's gonna be on Amazon, hopefully this next week.
Yeah.
So,
Congratulations.
but in order to have any products on Amazon, they have to be third-party tested. And just to do that, just for my last batch is $3,000. So it's $6,000. So $3,000 to test this one and $3,000 to test that one. So, but it'll be on Amazon,
Yeah.
so it'll be huge. Hopefully.
It's really awesome.
So I did bring in some like different needles too. I don't know, what kind of needles do you guys use here?
DVCs mostly.
Okay, yeah. So I use 14 to 15 needles in a session, basically. These come 10 to a pack, and I love these for like orthopedic stuff, or if I'm doing E-stem, I love these. But they're too messy for me. They fly everywhere, I drop them, they're everywhere, right? These are 5-pack, yeah, so I can just I will do 3 sets of these needles. I'll just pull them out, keep them in my hand, get all the needles in. So, so I just, there's different brands out there. I'm just so used to these that these are the ones I like, so. I think that's about it.